I think maps in TDS are a perfect example of what the illusion of choice means. You know, you can think all you want about doing an insane map, conquering a seemingly impossible challenge alone or with friends, strategizing for hours and bringing just the right towers. Just because this achievement doesn't mean something to everyone, doesn't mean it can't mean the world to you. Failing over and over until finally, sweet victory. You imagine all of this challenge, this fun, this glory, until one day, you can look back and see the amazing progress you've made, how much you've grown as a player, and all the amazing people you've met as a result. All this stemming from one simple accomplishment. You dreamed and will continue to dream. And yet, in the end, you always pick Crossroads instead. Now, TDS has 87 playable, non-sandbox, non-event maps, 76 survival maps, 7 PvP maps, 3 special maps, and also the 1 hardcore exclusive map. So, how long are they actually? But first, 2 very important questions. How do we calculate how long a map is, and what units will the length be in? Well, let's answer the second question first. What is a universal Roblox-specific measurement that can be used in almost every game when referring to distance or speed? Studs. It's studs. But how do you actually calculate the map's length? Well, by using the trigonometric function and the golden ratio. Oh, the enemy speed is already in studs per second. If you just time how long it takes an enemy to reach the end of the map in seconds and multiply it by their speed, you get the map length in studs. Okay then. And finally, with a dash of calculus, we can... What? It's that simple? Seriously? I spent like 5 hours calculating the length of this map. I can't... whatever. Let's turn these into graphs. Let's start with one of the things you came here for. The shortest map in the game is... where are the graphs? Oh, right. How do we calculate the length of multi-lane maps? There are 2 main ways to calculate the length of multi-lane maps. The first is to take only the length of the boss lane and use that as the map's length. This one is the most applicable, as in the majority of gameplay, the boss lane is usually the one that matters most, as bosses tend to push the most of all enemies. The second method is to take the individual lengths of every lane and divide the sum of those values by the number of lanes. This gives the average length, which, while not useful in gameplay, is great for graphs and comparing maps. Okay, great, we got it? Alright, it's graph time! Look at this graph, and this one, and this one, and this one, and this one. Okay, look, I know graphs are boring, but trust me, this is all going somewhere. Let's start with the simplest graph. All maps in the game compared to one another. Using this, we can find the longest and shortest maps in the game. Unsurprisingly, the overall longest map in the game is Summer Castle, added in version 1.70.0 on July 9th as a normal map, which now as a version 1.82 is a very easy map. Don't know why I wasn't like this from the start, but whatever. The map is 295.8 studs long. Now, the shortest map. It's technically the PvP map Distant Shapes at a staggering 63 studs. However, it may be more applicable to say the shortest survival map, or the third shortest map in the game, Gilded Path. Obviously, Hardcore, for example, has completely different maps in these positions. I'll just quickly scroll through the different graphs on the screen now, and you can pause to read them if you wish. Now, one fun thing is looking at the different map difficulty graphs. Take Retro Stained Temple, for example. At a length of 133 studs, it's actually the 7th shortest map in the game, but it's considered a easy map. While a map like Dusty Bridges, which is about 60% longer at 203.2 studs, is considered a hard map. All this to say that map length isn't the ultimate decider of map difficulty. Map difficulty comes from a few different things: placements, coverage, cliff space, and whether or not a map is multi-lane. Regardless, map length is still a good indicator of a map's difficulty in regards to how much DPS you actually need. Essentially, a map like Summer Castle realistically requires less DPS compared to, say, Toyborn. You have the extra length to micro or have long-range towers fire for longer than on a short map. Just because a map is short does not mean it is automatically harder than longer maps. On the other hand, Just because a map is long does not mean it's automatically easier than a shorter map due to the many factors that actually contribute to how difficult a map is separate from its given difficulty. Okay, I know I sound like Captain Obvious for saying that, but whatever. You want another example? Take a map such as Simplicity. At 155.9 studs and speedrunning meta due to its layout is considerably easier than the 3 lanes of pain hotspot, which, despite having a similar length at 154.9, is much more difficult. Also, did you know hotspot has this hole into the void which has been there since it was added? It's pretty cool. Now, as I fall to my death, you know what else is pretty cool and that you should do? You should subscribe, like, and comment down below your favorite map in TDS. It really helps me out if you want to see more content like this in the future. Anyway, back to the video. Now, I think an important question is, why even make these graphs? In fact, why even make this video? My secondary purpose for this video was not only to showcase the length of every map, finding the longest and shortest maps in the process, but also to tell a story. Back in 2023, I was a different player. I played primarily mobile and had a hunger for challenges and achievements that I still carry to this day. There was always one map I was fascinated by, Derelict Outpost, a community map added in version 1.8.0 on June 9th, 2023. It is a nightmarish map in terms of difficulty, 3 completely separate lanes that only meet at the beginning and the end. Back then, barely any towers had the range or splash to properly handle the hordes of pre-rework Fallen. It took nearly a month before Witherstar was able to finally beat it in solo Fallen. I can only assume he was the first player, as I could find no other screenshots or videos from this time of people beating it solo. The second player, a retired TDS player by the name of Taxvader, beating it 3 weeks after Wither as well. These two stood as the only two who had conquered such an insane challenge. I was particularly inspired more by Wither's gameplay. Every ability activation, every placement, everything seemed so perfect. I made the decision in early August to begin my own journey, to become the 3rd ever person to complete this map in solo Fallen. I tried for 3 months, every day pushing a little further, getting to the next wave, getting past that next obstacle. Eventually, October 19th, I got this run. $3,397 health. I tried again and again and again until October 28th, Lunar Overture. The update was pretty small, with one small itty-bitty change. Gladiator's Pierce was reduced from infinite down to just 3. With this minor change, the early game had become impossible, and the challenge was dead. In the final stretch, I had failed. All of the hours of my life were for nothing. Or were they? In doing this challenge, I had heavily grown as a player, learning more about Fallen than I could have ever hoped just playing the game normally. The difficulty of the map made the difficulty spikes of Fallen even more apparent, forcing me to get creative with handling the challenges presented. The lessons I learned about not giving up and the skills I had gained despite my apparent failings had even carried me through solo Hidden Wave. Now, all of this progression as a player stemmed from this one map. I had set a goal, becoming the 3rd ever player to complete this map, and I grew because of the time I put into it despite never truly achieving what I originally set out to do. But that's just the problem. There was no reason for me to do any of this. Let's take a step back. The map itself, separate from the glory of completing such a difficult challenge. What reason does the average player have to even try something like this? In fact, what reason does a player have to beat any map more difficult than Summer Castle? This is where the main issue comes from. These map difficulties, well, they don't matter. There is 0 reward difference between beating Dead Ahead and Fungi Island. Let that sink in for a moment. In TDS, there is 0 difference between a map that you can beat with Militant, Freezer, Crook Boss on Fallen versus a map that, at minimum, requires a full loadout with Ranger, Minigunner, Commander, and other related towers. In fact, you're more likely to gain less rewards from the harder map as they usually take longer to complete. There is no incentive to complete these challenges, to push yourself as a player. So, what can we do? This next section is entirely speculative, but it is my personal take on what can be done in order to fix these issues with maps not rewarding players for completing harder challenges. I have 2 proposed ideas that could push players towards more difficult maps. The first of which is to add some sort of reward scaling to map difficulties. Essentially, harder map difficulties reward more coins and XP. Something like a 2x or more reward multiplier on insane maps could help alleviate this issue partially. This will also extend to hard, normal, and all other map difficulties. The idea is to reward skilled players for challenging themselves and incentivize lesser skilled players to push out of their comfort zone and learn the game. The second idea builds onto an existing feature in the game, logbooks. Map logbooks are, well, kinda pointless. So, why not make them more of an indicator of progress? The idea would be to add some sort of first-time difficulty bonus to completing a difficulty on a map, kinda like BTD6. In fact, both of these ideas are just from BTD6. Harder maps rewarding players for completing them for the first time and all subsequent times with reward scaling is a great way to push players into challenging themselves personally without really instructing them. The game naturally pushes them, and they naturally push themselves. Now, TDS did recently release a public roadmap page, and on that, for Q1 of 2026, it does mention an update called Map Difficulty Reward Scaling, so hopefully something similar like this could be added. Regardless, even without an in-game reward structure, pushing yourself to try difficult challenges and things is great and can lead to a lot of improvement in your skills, not just in TDS, but in life in general. So, why not go out there and try something new? The purpose of the graphs I made were not just to find the easiest map and continue to play on that, but rather to show what maps may be more difficult because of their shorter length, that perhaps even you could try and beat an insane map yourself. So, why not practice what I preach? After all, I haven't done solo frost mode on Infernal Abyss yet, so why not try? On second thought, I'm going back to Crossroads.